Three people die: a doctor, a school teacher, and the head of a large insurance company. When met at the pearly gates by St. Peter, he asked the doctor, "What did you do on earth?" The doctor replied, "I healed the sick, and if they could not pay, I would do it for free." St. Peter told the doctor, "You may go in." St. Peter then asked the teacher what she did, and she replied, "I taught educationally challenged children." St. Peter then told her, "You may go in." St. Peter asked the third man, "What did you do?" The man raised his head and replied, "I ran a large insurance company." "You may go in," said St. Peter. The man happily walks forward when St. Peter adds, "for 3 days." Two guys want to go out and get real hammered, but they only have $1. So they go to a 7-Eleven, buy a sausage, and decide to have some fun. They go into the first bar and order a pint each. Just before they're done the pints and haven't paid yet, on a tab, I guess, the one guy takes the sausage, puts it between his legs, and the other guy bends down and begins to suck on it. Of course, the bartender thinks something else is going on, so he kicks them out, forgetting that they haven't paid yet. These two young men end up doing this at around 15 more bars and are totally drunk. The one guy says, "My back is so sore from bending over so much." The second guy then says, "Well, you think that's bad? I lost the sausage around 7 bars ago." A blonde stops by a cafe and gets her coffee to go. As she's about to leave, she notices a little sticker on the cup that says "Peel and win." She peels it back, gasps, and starts jumping up and down, shouting, "I've won a motorhome! I've won a motorhome!" The barista laughs and says, "That can't be right. The top prize is just a free lunch." But the blonde won't calm down. No, I've won a motorhome." The manager comes over, takes the ticket, and says, "Miss, we definitely didn't give away a motorhome." The blonde insists, "Look for yourself." The manager reads the ticket aloud, "Win a bagel." I travel for work, and it sometimes decreases how often we get to have sexy time. I knew that I'd have to leave today, so last night when we went to bed, I was all riled up and went over to kiss my wife. She said, "Honey, you know I can't. I have a gynecologist appointment tomorrow." And I thought, well, darn. Then I laid there defeated for a minute before saying, "Honey, you don't have a dentist appointment tomorrow, do you?" I was in Venice Beach in January, and there was a homeless man with a sign that said, $1 for dirty joke. Seemed like a good investment to me, so I gladly handed over $1. Homeless man says, "All right, sir, what's your name?" "Me, John." Homeless man, "So, Johnny, there is a black rooster, all right? How many legs does that chicken have?" "Me, 2. "Right. Now, how many wings this black rooster got?" "Me, 2. "Right. Now, how many eyes this black rooster got?" "Me, 2. "Right again. Now, there's this white cat walking around. How many hairs are on that white cat?" "Me, I don't know, a lot." "Well, Johnny, why do you know so much about black cock had not enough about white pussy?" Two college basketball players were taking an important final exam. If they failed, they would be on academic probation and not allowed to play in the big game the following week. The exam was fill in the blank. The last question read, "Old MacDonald had a blank." Bubba was stumped. He had no idea what to answer, but he knew he needed to get this one right to be sure he passed. Making sure the professor wasn't watching, he tapped Tiny on the shoulder. "Psst, Tiny, what's the answer to the last question?" Tiny laughed. He looked around to make sure the professor hadn't noticed, then he turned to Bubba. "Bubba, you're so stupid. Everyone knows Old MacDonald had a farm." "Oh yeah," said Bubba. "I remember now." He picked up his number 2 pencil and started to write the answer in the blank. He stopped. Tapping Tiny's shoulder again, he whispered, "Tiny, how do you spell farm?" "You are really dumb, Bubba. That's so easy. Farm is spelled E-I-E-I-O. Dear Bill, I am a 42-year-old mother. I left for work, but after a mile or so, my car broke down. I walked back home to find the babysitter handcuffed to the bed, sucking my husband's cock. I'm devastated. Can you help? Dear Susie, a common cause for this is dirt in your carburetor. Don't let your fuel drop too low in the tank. Hope this helps. Two men on a pilgrimage spend the night at a nunnery. They take a shower across the hall. When they want to start, they notice they forgot the soap, and one of them quickly darts back to their room to get two little travel soaps. Just as he wants to cross the hallway, two nuns walk by. Thinking on his feet, he leans against the wall and spreads his arms. The nuns mistake him for a Jesus statue and take a second to admire how lifelike it is. One of them turns to the other with a glint of mischief in her eye and says, "I always wanted to do this," and she gives a little tug at the man's penis. Startled, the man drops one of the soaps. "Oh, it's a soap dispenser," the nuns exclaim, and of course the other one wants one as well and gives him another tug. He drops the other soap, hoping they will go away. "Well, we should also get one for Sister Augustine," they say to each other, and tug and tug. Tug, tug, tug. Ooh, shampoo! A city bus driver noticed a group of passengers in the back clutching their seats like their lives depended on it. One woman was pale. One guy looked like he'd seen his ancestors. Another was whispering prayers. At the next stop, the driver stood up and said, "All right, folks, I have to ask, is everyone okay back there?" A shaky man raised his hand and said, "We will be, in a minute." The driver frowned. "What do you mean?" The man swallowed and replied, "You see that big sign you just passed that said sharp turns ahead?" "Yeah." "Well, this is our first time ahead." There were 4 university sophomores taking chemistry, and all of them had an A so far. These 4 friends were so confident that the weekend before finals, they decided to visit some friends and have a big party. They had a great time, but after all the hearty partying, they slept all day Sunday and didn't make it back to school until early Monday morning. Rather than taking the final then, they decided that after the final they would explain to their professor why they missed it. They said that they visited friends, but on the way back they had a flat tire. As a result, they missed the final. The professor agreed they could make up the final the next day. The guys were excited and relieved. They studied that night for the exam. The next day, the professor placed them in separate rooms and gave them each the 100-point exam. They quickly answered the first problem, worth 5 points. Cool, they thought. Each one in separate rooms, thought this was going to be easy. Then they turned the page. On the second page was written, for 95 points, which tire? A little boy asks his mother, "Mom, is it possible to eat electricity?" The mother says, "What? Where did you hear that?" The boy replied, "Yesterday I heard Dad say to you, 'Turn off the light and put it in your mouth.'" A scruffy-looking woman walked into a gym cafe wearing a tank top on a hot afternoon. She stretched her arms wide and announced loudly, "Which strong gentleman here is going to buy a lady a smoothie?" The place went dead quiet. Everyone suddenly became very interested in their phones. From the corner, a half-asleep guy in sweatpants slapped the table and shouted, "Get the yoga master a smoothie." The barista served it. She finished it in one long gulp. Moments later, she stretched again and repeated, "So, which strong gentleman is buying the next one?" Without hesitation, the same guy yelled, "Another smoothie for the yoga master." Curious, the barista leaned over and whispered, "Hey man, no judgment, but why do you keep calling her the yoga master?" The guy shrugged and said, "Anyone who can lift their legs that high and still look that relaxed has got to be a yoga master." A woman entered a pub and saw a haggard-looking soldier sitting at the bar. She approached him and asked if everything was all right. The soldier said, "I haven't had since 2014. The woman replied, "Wow, that's a long time. How about I get your tab and you come back to my hotel?" They went to her hotel room and made passionate love for a solid 2 hours. "Wow," said the soldier, "that's the best I've had all night." The woman went, "Wait a minute, you told me you hadn't had since 2014. The soldier replied, "Yes, ma'am, that's true. Now it's 23:55. Johnny asks his mom, "When I grow up, will I have 2 willies like Daddy?" "Daddy doesn't have 2 willies." "Sure he does. He has the little soft one he uses to pee out of, and the massive hard one he uses to brush the babysitter's teeth with." A man was sitting on his front steps, staring at the ground with a gloomy look. His neighbor walked over and tried to cheer him up, but the man barely responded. Finally, the neighbor asked, "What's wrong?" The man sighed. "I got trapped by one of those questions women ask. Now I'm in the doghouse." "What kind of question?" the neighbor asked. "She asked me if I'd still love her when she was old, fat, and ugly." "That's simple," the neighbor said. "All you had to do was say, 'Of course I will.'" "Yeah," the man groaned. "That's what I meant to say, but what I actually said was, 'Of course I do.'" A Scouser walks into the local benefits office, walks up to the counter to collect his fortnightly giro and says to the woman, "You know something, I just hate being on the dole. I'd really rather have a job." The benefits worker behind the counter tells him, "Your timing is excellent. We have just got a job opening from a very wealthy old man. He wants a chauffeur and bodyguard for his nymphomaniac daughter. You'll have to drive around in his Mercedes or his Rolls Royce. He'll supply all of your clothes, credit cards, and money. Because of the long hours, all your meals will also be provided. You'll be expected to escort his beautiful daughter on her overseas holiday trips. You'll have to satisfy all of her needs, including any physical urges. You'll have a 2-bedroomed apartment above the garage, and the starting salary is £200,000 a year." The Scouser says, "You're bullshitting me." The benefits worker says, "Yeah, but you started it." A plane takes off with 2 hours delay. Once in the air, a passenger asks the flight attendant, "Why did we take off so late?" To which the flight attendant replies, "Well, the pilot noticed some smoke and weird noises coming from the left engine, and it took us a while to find another pilot willing to fly this plane." A guy was walking along the street when he saw a crowd of people running towards him. He stopped one of the runners and asked, "What's happening?" The runner replied breathlessly, "A lion has escaped from the zoo." "Oh my, which way is it heading?" "Well, you don't think we are chasing it, do you?" 3 women are sitting in a beauty parlor, chatting about their husbands. The first woman sighs and says, "Last night, my husband told me he was going to his office, but when I called, they said he wasn't there." The second woman shakes her head and adds, "Same here. My husband said he was heading to his brother's house, but when I called, he wasn't there either." The third woman smiles confidently and says, "I always know exactly where my husband is." The other 2 women look at her in disbelief and exclaim, "That's impossible. He must have you completely fooled." The third woman chuckles and replies, "Oh, not at all. I'm a widow." Daughters text to dad, "Daddy, I'm coming home to get married soon, so get your checkbook ready, LOL. As you know, I'm in Australia and he's in the US. We met on a dating site, became friends on Facebook, and had long chats on WhatsApp. He proposed to me on Skype, and now we've had a 2-month relationship through Viber. Dad, I need your blessing, good wishes, and a really big wedding. Lots of love, Lily." Dad's reply, My dear Lily, like, wow, really? Cool. Whatever. I suggest you two get married on Twitter, have fun on Tango, register for your stuff on Amazon, and pay for it all through PayPal. And when you get fed up with this new husband, sell him on eBay. Lots of love, Dad. A man walks into a bar and orders a whiskey. The bartender serves the whiskey, and all of a sudden, a monkey appears running all across the bar, jumps, and lands with his testicles in the whiskey and smiles to the man. The man, confused, asks to the bartender, "What is this?" "Oh, ask the piano player. It is his monkey." So the guy looks for the piano player and shouts, "Hey, do you know why your monkey sunk his balls in my goddamn whiskey?" "Not by the title, but if you can sing it a little bit, I'm sure I can make it work." An airline pilot with poor eyesight managed to pass his periodic vision exams by memorizing the eye charts beforehand. One year, though, his doctor used a new chart that the pilot had never before seen. The pilot proceeded to recite the old chart, and the doctor realized that he'd been suckered all these years. Then the doctor could not contain his curiosity. How is it that someone with your eyesight can manage to pilot a plane at all? I mean, how, for example, do you taxi the plane out to the runway? "Well," said the pilot, "it's really not very hard. All you have to do is follow the instructions of the ground controller over the radio. And besides, the landmarks have all become quite familiar to me over the years." "I can understand that," replied the doctor. "But what about the takeoff?" "Again, a simple procedure. I just aim the plane down the runway, go to full throttle, pull back on the stick, and off we go." "But once you're aloft?" "Oh, everything's fully automated these days. The flight computer knows our destination, and all I have to do is hit the autopilot, and the plane pretty much flies itself." "But I still don't see how you land." "Oh, that's the easiest part of all. All I do is use the airport's radio beacon to get us on the proper glide path. Then I just throttle down and wait for the co-pilot to yell, 'Aye!' Then I will pull the nose up, and the plane lands just fine." RJ, a Japanese and a Britisher, were lost in the desert. They were driving around in a Jeep when it broke down. Because they had nothing else, they decided to each take a piece of the Jeep as they continued their journey. The Japanese took the radiator, the Britisher took the seat, and RJ took the door. After a while of walking, the Britisher asked the Japanese, "I'm confused. Why did you bring the radiator?" The Japanese responded, "If I get thirsty, I can drink the fluid." Next, RJ asked the Britisher, "Why did you bring the seat?" So the Britisher said, "If I get tired, I'm not going to sit on the sand. I can sit on this comfortable seat." Finally, the Japanese asked our hero why he had chosen the door. Jay quickly responded to this question. "Well, when it gets hot, all I have to do is roll down the window." A knight is riding on the road in search of adventures. He sees the road splitting ahead of him, and next to the fork, a rock with some writing upon it. The knight dismounts and reads, "Shalt thou go right, thou shalt lose thy steed. Shalt thou go left, thou shalt lose thy life. Shalt thou go straight ahead, thou shalt go nuts." Well, the knight decides, the other two sound trivial, so let's see what adventures lie straight ahead. He rides for a few hours. The sun is hot, not a single creek or well in sight. Really thirsty, he suddenly sees a large lake, and next to that lake, a huge dragon is lying. The knight spurs his stallion, pounces upon the dragon, and cuts off the head. Immediately, the dragon grows two new ones. The knight cuts off one of those, and again 2 more grow. For nearly an hour he hacks at the enemy, but to no avail. Finally, exhausted,
He falls onto the ground. "I can't go on," he breathes out. "You win." The dragon looks at him. "Tell me, good sir, why did you attack me?" I wanted to have a drink of water," the knight answers. "Are you nuts? Who was stopping you?" On a recent flight I was on, this elderly woman kept peering out the window. Since it was totally dark, all she could see was the blinking wingtip light. Finally, she rang for the flight attendant. "I'm sorry to bother you," she said, "but I think you should inform the pilot that his left turn indicator is on and has been for some time."
3 friends were backpacking through Europe and found out about a magical mountain near the coast, so they decided to check it out. When they finally reached the top of the mountain, they saw a man jump straight off the edge and screamed that he wanted to be an eagle. Then poof! He turned into an eagle and flew away. After seeing that, the 3 friends got really excited and decided to go for it. The first thought for a second and then dashed straight off and yelled, "I want to be a hawk!" Then poof! He turned into a hawk and flew away. The second friend thought for a second and finally decided and jumped off and yelled, "I want to be a mountain goat!" Then poof! He turned into a mountain goat and ran away. The third friend thought about for a long while and then finally decided. He ran as fast as he could, ready to jump, but then slipped on loose rocks and fell off the yelling, "Oh, crap!" Splat! A man approached a very beautiful woman in the large supermarket and said, "I've lost my wife here in the supermarket. Can you talk to me for a couple of minutes?" The woman looked puzzled. "Why talk to me?" she asked. "Because every time I talk to a woman with tits like yours, my wife appears out of nowhere." "A police officer stopped me and searched my pockets, found a bag of weed. What have we here? It's not mine, officer." He scoffs. "I'm serious. I was cursed by a leprechaun. You know what scallywags they are. Now, every single time I flush this chronic down the toilet, it magically reappears in my pocket. Bullshit. Try me." He frowns, but follows me as we head to the bathroom in this cafe. I take out the cannabis and flush it down the crapper. He checks my pocket and asks, "So where's the bag of weed?" "What bag of weed?"